Thanks very much, Lascan Carla. I welcome the opportunity to speak on this topic. We've had a number of debates, I suppose, in this chamber in relation to domestic violence. And as we know, there's been a huge increase since COVID or during COVID, or maybe actually it's just highlighted it more rather than it actually being an increase. So domestic violence and coercive control are unfortunately widespread. It's often hidden. And the situations that unfortunately it's mainly women find themselves in are extremely complex. So we also know that between March and June of this year, that 21,000 calls from women or other concerned citizens were answered from various domestic violence services. This was unfortunately a significant increase on the same period last year, but as I just pointed out earlier, I think it's possible that COVID has just put it all into stark focus. Earlier this week, my colleagues, Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald and Deputy Louise O'Reilly, announced that we would introduce legislation to create a statutory entitlement of up to 10 days paid leave in a 12-month period for employees as a consequence of domestic violence. Now, this would just be one small measure to help and assist mainly women in this situation. There is a huge emotional and psychological personal cost of domestic violence, and it's devastating. And there are also obviously significant economic costs associated with this crime, and it's often due to financial reasons and economic reasons that women find it so difficult to leave in the first place, particularly because there's often children involved and they're very worried about how exactly they're going to be able to provide for themselves, particularly where the man has control of the finances or they're in a social welfare situation where they're all on the one claim. And I think it's situations like that where we need to have a lot more common sense, and they need to be able to be dealt with a lot quicker if a woman is leaving in that situation. There's obviously also, and some people have touched on it, a direct correlation between domestic violence and homelessness. Domestic abuse is the leading cause of homelessness for women and children in Ireland, and I know I find it so frustrating when you're dealing with people who are forced to leave their home. And obviously in many situations that has to be the first step because it's the safest step and it's the only way for somebody to actually get out with their children. But then you have a situation where a man who has been involved in domestic violence is sitting at home on his own in a 3-bed house while the women and children's lives have been totally upheavaled and they're stuck in a refuge somewhere, which is just, I understand why it has to be a first step, but we need to get far better at dealing with that situation a lot more quickly for women in that situation so that they can possibly be the ones to return to the home a lot faster than we currently see happening. As legislators, I think it's incumbent on us to invest time, resources to create a framework and policies that seek to prevent domestic abuse. We must have a long-term vision to protect women and children in this country. And I know, and I'm even guilty of it sometimes myself when we talk about this debate, that you do talk about the domestic violence services, but we do actually need long-term thinking, and we need to realise as well that we have to try and break that link, that if you are grown up in a domestic violence situation and those issues are not dealt with, you will carry that into your own adulthood, possibly for your own children. So we need to kind of realise that, and we need to deal with that in terms of counselling, in terms of support, so that people can break that cycle. And I'll leave it at that. Time is up. Thanks, Carla.